all right. Take your time.
Okay, wait. Okay, I can hear things now. Sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah, you guys sound awesome. That sounds like a really good mic.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. JB Hi-Fi.
I love it. All right, guys. Let's do this. So I'm going to intro you guys in, and we're just going to take off. Are we ready for that?
Yep. Let's go.
Beautiful. All right. On today's morning walk, I'm joined by two very knowledgeable, very down-to-earth bodybuilding competitors, nutritional scientists, and physique coaches who have spent the last year giving out unbelievable knowledge and perspective on everything to do with food, being in comp prep, and nutritional psychology. Jack and Tyarra are a power couple that live and breathe competition, and they do it for the right reasons. Today, what I really want to do is bring into light the very intricate topics of your gut health, the link to immunity, and trying to get as many podcasts to talk about these things, because these are the people that live and breathe optimization. You look good when you feel good and when you take care of your body. And I'm so excited to dig into it today with you guys. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us, Carl.
Yeah, thanks so much. We're honored to be on the podcast.
It's no problem at all, guys. I'm super excited because it's not very often you get to talk to people that are sort of fresh out of the scene where you're actually learning and you're putting in all these topics that you're talking about, and you're putting it into practical applications with other coaches, with other competitors, and yourselves, which is the most important thing in my opinion.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, we did recently graduate last year. So like you said, we're kind of fresh from having learnt all the up-to-date knowledge from uni. And I just wanted to add, I'm very impressed that you got Tyarra's name right as well.
Thank you so much. It's a rarity, that's for sure, especially here in Australia. I do get a lot of Tyarras. So
Tyarras. Well, that's what I was thinking that just was about to come on. I just listened to your most recent podcast, and I was waiting for you to say your name so I could make sure I got it 100%
gosh,
right.
Thank you.
I just winged it.
I really appreciate that.
No, it's no problem at all. And look, for just for my listeners, if you haven't listened to not only their recent podcast, but the Bodybuilding Dieticians podcast in general, should definitely jump on it, because they've already covered a lot of things that have to do with COVID-19 in general, with how to set up your home gym. They've already covered everything that people are asking, because a lot of your podcast is based on question and answer, correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much the basis of it. We'll either do some shorter question and answers, or basically do an extended topic like we did for COVID, where we probably talked for like 20-30 minutes about it.
And it's pretty insane to think, we're up to 67 episodes by now. And I'd always think that, there would be repeat topics or repeat questions. Just blown away how every single week from the listeners, we will always get new questions and new topics. It's never ending, which is so awesome, because there's always new things to discuss and think about.
Well, yeah, that's just it, isn't it? Because every person, even though what you're probably finding is that they are similar questions, but when it's asked from a different person, it has to be answered in a different way for it to hit right with them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's like the diversity of nutrition and and even exercise as well, and why it's so interesting.
Yeah, it's an individualized approach, and that's why we want to just get as much content out there, which is why I appreciate you guys and just taking it from the people that you talk to and the people that are directly contacting with you and talking to you already and answering it for them. I think it's awesome. So why did you guys choose nutritional science over exercise science, over the actual movement side of things?
Yeah, so we were actually speaking about this morning. So our undergraduate degree, so our bachelor degree, is actually a degree of nutrition and exercise science. So we got a little bit of the best of both worlds there, but then we did a master's of dietetics, which, exclusively focuses on nutrition. But why would you choose nutrition over exercise, Jack?
So I always, to be honest, like the honest answer for me at that stage, so it was like 2014, 2015, when going out of high school, I didn't even think about the exercise component, to be honest. And I think that was because I had such a large nutrition deficit, and I would always think, okay, I know how to go to the gym, even though I was doing it wrong back then. But I know how to go to the gym. I've played football growing up, but I don't really understand the nutrition component of this, and I'm probably making poor nutritional choices as well to support my goals.
Mm-hmm. And I just think food is so freaking cool. You know, we all eat food. We all have to eat food to survive every single day. And I think it's just incredibly interesting on a biochemistry level, you know, how our body will respond, you know, in response to different types of food and nutrient intakes. But I guess, you know, because we did nutrition and exercise, like we did get, we were taught in both of those fields, but I feel like we learned enough of the exercise component. Like if you wanted to go on and be, you know, an exercise physiologist or an exercise sports scientist or something like that, I feel like we have a pretty similar knowledge to them, obviously not as in depth, but for example, it's not the same on the flip side. So an exercise physiologist wouldn't have, unfortunately, nearly the same level of education when it comes to nutrition.
So important there. And it's very easy to feel like a bit of a pro when it comes to training. As soon as you start to overload a little bit and you start to put a bit more weight on the bar, it's very, very quickly do you start to feel efficient and competent in the exercise science of it all. But when it comes to nutrition, there's just so many different avenues you can go down. There's a million different ways you can diet and structure your diet, and you can get very lost in it. And having people that are leading the way in the correct way to do things, I think is going to be super important, especially in today's situation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think when it comes to exercise, as long as you understand those basic fundamentals of hypertrophy and progressive overload and building strength, right? Like you can really, really work with that. But absolutely, nutrition is just absolutely fascinating, especially when it comes to sports nutrition and really optimizing sporting performance and recovery. Like that's just what I'm so passionate and so interested in.
Yeah, beautiful. So I guess from here, it also makes a lot of sense as to why you guys chose bodybuilding as from any other sport. So how does the nutritional side of things link into the bodybuilding? How important is it?
So I think the analogy that I heard recently actually was that if you think about the results you get from bodybuilding, so muscle gain is the fire, then training is going to be the fuel or the wood that feeds the fire. So Nutrition, yeah. Or did I say training?
Yeah.
Okay. Nutrition is going to be the fuel that feeds the fire. And because if you just have a great diet on its own, even if you have a diet that's maybe specifically tailored for bodybuilding, which could be potentially a higher carbohydrate approach, then you're not going to gain muscle from that alone. You need the training there to actually the hypertrophic aspect. But nutrition undoubtedly supports that. So whether you need to be in an energy deficit or energy surplus, and as I said before, we often do support a higher carbohydrate approach for physique athletes.
Yeah, that's so good. And so you said obviously bodybuilding approach is normally higher carbohydrate. Now, when you're working with, let me ask this first. Are you guys working specifically with competitors at this point in time? Are you working with people that aren't trying to compete and are just looking for a healthy lifestyle? Where do you fall in there?
Yeah, I'd say that we work with an entire range of clients. You know, we're just very passionate about helping anyone who has health and fitness related goals, is highly motivated, highly determined, and just wants to feel better, be healthier, you know, get stronger, get fitter. So we work with a wide range of clients, and that really is, you know, competitors in their improvement season, competitors going through a competition prep, and lifestyle clients of all ages, of all, you know, sexes.
Oh, that's fantastic. And do you suggest, or do you sort of try and push people to a higher carbohydrate diet in most cases? Is that sort of like where you start and then move from there, or is it always individualized?
I would say it's always individualized, and it really does depend on the client. So someone who really is I would say that most of our clients they all exercise, of course, and they pretty much all of them do resistance training as well. And we always discuss with them what is going to be the best option for their lifestyle. So someone who does want to get the most out of their training though, which is pretty much everyone, we would probably recommend a high carbohydrate approach. And that's not to say fat is necessarily low either. It just means we're not overindulging in fat, even though there's nothing. The thing with Tyarra and I is where we encourage all aspects of nutrition, and there's not really a right or wrong. It has to be as you said, really individualized.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing that people are taking into consideration, that it shouldn't necessarily be eliminating things or taking away things from your diet. It should always be a holistic approach and sort of trying as much as you can, and then maybe eliminating the things that aren't necessarily helping you or benefiting you in any way, and slowly moving from there. It should always be a fluid approach to your diet.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be sustainable. And I think the only reasons why things should be excluded from the diet are if you have an allergy, if you have an intolerance, or you just like really don't like foods like coriander or something, right? So it comes down to likes and dislikes too. But I guess sometimes when people hear us say, you know, a high carbohydrate approach, they kind of they almost interpret that as an extreme, you know, as if it's only carbohydrates and only, you know, moderate protein and no fat. But pretty much a high carbohydrate approach, when we say that, we just mean that, you know, a larger proportion of your calories are coming from carbohydrates compared to fats. But it certainly doesn't mean that you're not consuming any fatty acids in your diet. So it's certainly, we are always advocates for a well and truly balanced diet, that's for sure, because you can't eliminate any single macro, you know? The macro, like, we have macronutrients for a reason, because we need all of them to optimize health.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is all stuff that we're going to get into pretty deep today that I would love you guys to talk about. But I do want to talk about your most recent competition season, which unfortunately did get cancelled for you, Tyarra, more than anyone. I could tell how excited you were for it all and for it to get taken away from you. You did speak about this a lot. You've put up a lot of your thoughts. So how detrimental was that to you? How do you feel now? What are your sort of plans going forward?
Gosh, well, you know, it certainly was the last thing I would ever expect to have happened in the world, right? So it's almost even hard to kind of comprehend what happened. But, you know, I am a very optimistic, and I am, you know, a very realistic person. And I do accept that the stage is always going to be there. And, you know, I'm just trying to stay in a positive frame of mind and remind myself that, you know, it wasn't all for nothing. I still got to step on stage at least once, even though it wasn't the 6 shows that I had planned. I did get to step on stage once. I got to experience, you know, a new federation and a new division I've never competed in before, and one I've been striving to compete in for years now, which is the IFBB bikini. So got to tick off that big goal.
Yeah, just quickly, I really want to commend you on that. It's a massive step to go from ICN and all these other competitions and federations to step into the IFBB and even get up on stage. Incredible. I'm really appreciate people like you that are trying to do that and take that next step forward. I think it's where a lot of our dreams lie, in as sort of an end goal. So especially doing it natural, unbelievable.
Wow, thank you so much, Carl. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I certainly, when I was up on stage, I did kind of feel like a little fish among all these beautiful sharks, but hey, I got up there. But yeah, certainly it was such an experience. And of course, I am disappointed that I don't get to showcase my hard work, you know, on the stage in the other federations like ICN and AWNBS, and I didn't get to step on the Arnold stage as well, which, of course, I think every single competitor is disappointed in that case. But, you know, the stage will always be there, and even though I did go through over 6 months of very, you know, disciplined and strategic training and nutrition, right? Like, I still learned so much from it. And it was such an experience, one that I will never forget. I can take so many learning takeaways away from it to apply to my future preps. And really, I'm just determined to be better. So just trying to stay in a positive frame of mind, you know, trying to treat it as maybe a blessing in disguise. And I know that next time I get the opportunity to stand on stage, it's just going to feel more special than it ever would have even felt this season.
Yeah, well, there's no real downside to completing a prep. It can obviously be a little bit disheartening if it doesn't go to plan, but the amount that you learn from just taking something so seriously and being 100% in anything and any sort of training, I don't think there's really any downsides to that. Now, my one of the other great reasons why I wanted to get you on was my fiance at the moment, her dreams were to actually compete next year in the 2021 season A or season B, depending on how she was looking. After seeing us jump on stage and saw me jump on stage, she really wanted to try it out and see what it was like. And you guys were the first people I put her onto to start listening to, and she's already learned so much. How much do you actually share together when it comes to comp prep? Are you always talking about your macros, especially Tyarra that was coming in and actually doing a contest prep right at the minute? How much did you share with Jack? Were you very into it with her, or was it more just like, just listen to the podcast and you'll learn everything you need to know?
Yeah, Jack, you take the floor.
So yeah, the thing with Tyarra and I is that we live and breathe this stuff. So even if Tyarra's non-prep, like we'll still be talking about our diets and training regardless. And in terms of like me having a coaching influence on her, to be honest, not really. I think Tyarra is a very determined person, and she knows what she wants, and she has enough knowledge to do it herself, really. And I was there to support her, but
independent woman over here.
And to be honest, I wouldn't have changed anything anyway. Like, she did a great job, and to be honest, like at the end of the prep, Tyarra showed almost like no diet fatigue, like pretty much no hangriness either, and that's just a testament to how well she dieted, and like almost no strength loss either. So it's just a testament to how well she structured everything.
For sure. It looked meticulous, and the way that you're able to come out every single week and tell people exactly what you're doing. There was no guesswork. There was no, oh, maybe I'll just do this. It was always calculated. It was always, this is what I'm thinking and what I'm doing. And regardless of whether it was right or wrong, I think that attitude is so important.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it means so much to plan well ahead when it comes to a comp prep. You know, this is a serious thing. It's not just a 5 kilometer, fun run in the park kind of thing. Like, it takes months and it takes years of planning. And I think if you do want to do your best, like, it really pays off to try to be strategic, pay attention to the data, and just trust the plan. And obviously you have to make modifications as you go, but that's really nice of you to say, Jack. Thank you. But yeah, Jack and I we certainly do live and breathe this. We wake up in the morning and I'm like, what was your weight? How many carbs are you eating today, or something like that. We're always holding each other accountable in that sense, which is really fun, and really enjoy it, and we're always giving each other critical feedback. Like, we'll look at, each other doing an RDL or something. We'll be like, I think you had quite a few reps in the tank there. You can probably increase the weight, kind of thing.
It's usually the other way around.
Either way, it's a fun time.
Yeah, and it's important. The accountability side of things is important, and being able to have that with someone in your own home, especially, I think it can be a little bit hard if the one person isn't 100% into it. But if you both have that exact same mindset, keeping that accountability and having it all the time is it's priceless.
Yeah, it definitely isn't for everyone, in saying that if someone isn't into this 100%, then it would just get boring and very irritable. But definitely with us, as I said, we live and breathe it. So yeah, it's complete normality for us now.
And luckily, over the years, we found a way to share the scale and share the microwave so that we can both cook our food at the same time.
Well, that's actually a very good point. How similar are your guys' foods? Do you cook together? Are you eating similar meals? Are you eating at the same times? How do you go with dinner, especially living at home together?
So we eat at the same times. We have like the same meal timing, but we certainly eat different foods just because we are both eating extremely different amounts of calories right now. So Jack's, more on like the hot cross bun kind of cereal train, obviously other foods too. But when it comes to trying to fill his diet with lots of carbohydrates, because how many carbs do you, what did you get up to, max carbs?
I got up to, about 5K calories a day and 800 carbs. So
yeah,
I can't eat all brown rice for that.
Yeah, so I'm not quite there yet. So yeah, we eat at the same time, but we certainly eat different foods.
And is that your plan from here, Tyarra, just to slowly build up your calories back up and bring your carbs back up to somewhere comfortable?
Yeah, exactly. So like I ended my diet on 325 grams of carbs, and I was maintaining my stage weight, even probably getting leaner as the weeks went on by the pretty much from how my progress photos were looking, which is pretty cool. But right now I'm up to 375 grams of carbs, and I'm still only just like about a kilogram up from my stage weight. So I'm feeling really good. I'm eating a hell of a lot of fruit and oats and stuff, but I know I'm gonna have to keep pushing it further. So yeah, in the coming days or coming weeks, I'm definitely gonna hit that 400-gram number, which is pretty exciting. So who knows, I might have to take one of Jack's hot cross buns.
Oh, I love that. Well, look, I really want to give some value to listeners, obviously, that are not being able to train at a gym now. And I can't speak for everyone, but I almost think I can, in the sense that our diets have definitely changed. Your food habits have definitely changed, and your cravings have definitely changed. So tell me, can we out-train a bad diet? Can we exercise enough so that we can enjoy cookies and chips and those late night snacks and pizzas? How much would we have to train? What would we have to do there to be able to have that as a part of the diet and be able to sort of enjoy the foods that we want at this time?
So I think the short answer is that no, you can't out-train a bad diet, and that obviously that is generalized. So some people can, but the reality is, like, I don't know, a cookie or a muffin, it requires a certain amount of expenditure, like let's say like half an hour to 45 minutes in order to burn that off. And it's just not realistic. And it's a very sort of loaded question in the sense that, okay, some people, such as myself, I need to eat a lot of food. I can afford to fit things like hot cross buns in, cookies and all that sort of stuff if I wanted to, ice cream. But it's about whether I'm choosing to make the right nutritional choices or not. And I think the best answer to this question is you should be able to fit those things in, just in moderation. And that's the beauty of being able to track certain foods, is that you can work towards a specific either calorie or macronutrient goal.
I love that. So important. And obviously I'm asking some of these loaded questions because I want to ask questions in the way that I think a lot of people are thinking.
We love that, yeah.
And it's important for someone like you to turn around and say, look, we can have these foods in our diet. That doesn't inherently mean they're bad foods. It doesn't inherently mean that, you're going to get negative effects from them. But how important is the tracking side of things when it comes to eating those foods?
So it depends on your goals. So if you're someone who is looking to be healthy, who just wants to exercise regularly for the health effects and to live longer and avoid your risk of chronic disease, then tracking is not important. And if anything, I would discourage tracking, because like once you do start tracking it and you start incorporating this psychological aspect, and I think anyone who has tracked before, like the vast proportion of them, they look at food as numbers, and it's kind of difficult to get out of that habit.
It's kind of like an all or nothing thing. Like, it's either you're fully committed to it, you're going to track all day, because there's not too much of a point in just tracking like half your meals and then just kind of winging the rest of the meals.
That's a very good point. Are you guys tracking right now through a MyFitnessPal or anything like that, or are you sort of winging it?
Yeah, so we pretty much track 365 days a year. Like, it's not really a burden on us. Again, we live and breathe this, and we love it, and we love, being able to be in control of our training and nutrition, and really using our education to our advantage to, maximize our potential and, really just optimize things. So in our case, it's just kind of second nature. When you're about to eat something, put that apple on the scale and type in, how many grams it was into MyFitnessPal. It's not too much of a burden. So yeah, we definitely do track everything, because it keeps us on track, because, we just have very specific goals. And when you have specific goals, you just have to do specific things. But again, like Jack said, for a general population client who just wants to exercise regularly, feel good, then certainly, downloading MyFitnessPal and absolutely weighing everything to the gram that you put in your mouth, it's not necessary. In that case, it's more about education and, really teaching them about the fundamentals of nutrition. So like, you can really use the plate model in this case, which is fantastic, where if you're having 3 meals a day and you have a dinner plate, fill half of that plate with non-starchy vegetables, 1/4 of that plate with whole grains, and the other quarter with, a lean protein source. And then you can have, a nutritious fat source as well, something like olive oil or nuts or avocado or, you name it. So it really is, again, it's all about the individual and what their circumstances are and what their goals are.
Yeah, such a great point. Not everyone needs to track. For some people, it's, especially during this time, can just be an added stressor, and stress is obviously something that we want to decrease as much as possible. But I'm also thinking about the people that, are you guys, this may be just me and some of the people that I'm talking to, are you finding now, I think I heard on your podcast earlier, your steps are dramatically decreasing and your actual energy expenditure is dropping?
In my case, yes, not Tyarra's.
Probably not mine.
Tyarra's?
Like, honestly, coming out of this prep and raising my macros and my calories, like, I just feel like my NEAT is through the roof. And I just feel like I've got so much energy. I've got so much glucose in me that, like, I get a little bit stressed and a little bit anxious if I don't expend it. So I'm certainly, taking the dogs on multiple walks per day, mowing the lawn, cleaning the house, just trying to be on my feet during the day, bouncing around. And but I feel like I feel like I need to do that. Also with this whole COVID-19 thing, like, I just feel if I'm in the house too long, I get just cooped up and I need to get outside and get some fresh air and some sunlight. But I've always been very active. My steps have always been very high, walking around and stuff. And I used to walk to World's Gym Brisbane like twice per day, once to train, once to pose. But Jack, I think because his calories are already so high without having to do many steps, if he does extra expenditure, he just has to eat a buttload more food. So I think the only reasons your steps have gone down is because we trained at World's Gym Brisbane, which is about a 10-minute walk from us, and we'd walk there every day. And then World's Gym Brisbane is massive, right? It's a huge warehouse. And when we're there for like 3 hours training or something, like, you're walking around the whole time. So you would rack up a lot of steps.
Yeah, and if any, as Tyarra said, if anything, it's less of a burden now. I don't have to eat quite as much. And I haven't had that feeling where I really don't want to eat, which is quite pleasurable.
Yeah, and that's actually feeling hungry, I think, is important, and it can be quite taxing trying to eat when you're not. And I think there's a lot of people that maybe have never gotten to that point when it comes to training, or maybe hypertrophy wasn't their main goal, and they don't really understand that at some point in time you're going to be eating more than you naturally would want, and sometimes it can be quite
uncomfortable. For sure, yeah. And yeah, to some people that does sound very foreign, and like, why the hell are you doing that then? And it is just one of those crazy things that you might need to do if you want to maximize hypertrophy and gain weight.
Well, yeah, as bodybuilders, we always look at, like, all right, there's no sort of, you have to be very good at detaching yourself emotionally from food and training, and there has to be a little bit of the mindset of whatever it takes.
Yeah, for sure. And I personally, like, I view food, because I am very detached from food at the moment, and that's because I don't have any drive to eat due to hunger. And in some ways that's good, like some ways that's not so good as well. But at the moment, I really do just look at food as a target that I need to hit, and I hit it, just like I do with my training. And that really works well for me. For other people, it might not work so well.
Oh, so cool. Now let's talk a little bit about gut health. You guys are listening to you guys personally, I know how intricate you guys are and just how far your knowledge goes and how deep it goes into some of this stuff. So give us a little bit of a rundown about gut health. How important is it to immunity right at this time, where that should be on people's focus? Maybe not their number one priority, but it needs to be up there as far as what they're thinking about. What do people need to know as far as the foods that they're eating, how it's affecting the gut, and if that affects immunity?
Yeah, so I guess what we can say first, Jack mentioned this a few weeks ago on the podcast, but when we're talking about gut health, we should just identify that gut health is actually different to the gut microbiome. So gut health can pretty much, encompass the health of your gut. So the actual health of the enterocytes within your intestine, and the tissues within there, right? And the health of your entire gut. But the gut microbiome is actually, the entire colony of different gut microbes and different bacteria within your gut. So they are two separate things. But, when it comes to optimizing gut health, really it just comes down to the basics of nutrition. So eating a plant-based diet, the recommendations right now are to have a large diversity of fiber types within your diet, and those are going to come from plant-based foods. And the recommendation is actually to try to get at least 30 different types of plants within your diet across the week. And anyone listening to this, if you're at home, not much to do with COVID-19, you can, try to do this as a little task. So see how many plant foods are you eating per week and do up a little tally. So that includes every different type of fruit, vegetable, nuts, seed, lentil, every type of whole grain, right? Even different types of herbs and spices, those are plants too. So if you are consuming 30 different types, then basically the literature says that you're going to have a very large diversity of healthful gut microbes. And, other than, nutrition and eating lots of plants, again, it just comes down to getting good quality sleep, regular exercise, managing your stress, having good hygiene. So especially again with COVID-19, washing your hands, taking regular showers, brushing your teeth.
Yeah, 100%. All those things are so important. And I don't know a lot of people that would be getting in those 30 different types of fruits and vegetables and different types of fibers daily. So that sounds like quite a big task and something I'm going to push forward to my listeners, because it would be a good task and it would be something good to focus on during this time that isn't calorie focused, that isn't weight focused, and just thinking about how we can actually make ourselves healthier.
So luckily, awesome. Sorry, I'm not sure if I said daily, but luckily,
sorry, weekly. You said weekly. That was my bad.
So, if someone is food prepping, like they don't have to fit like 30 different plants into their entire daily meal plan, but they can, split it up so they're having different things for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe 3 times per week or something. And
it does encourage people to not eat the same thing every day, though, because if you follow a meal plan with the same foods every day, oats for breakfast, rice for lunch and dinner, then you're not going to hit it.
Yeah, it's really just about getting more variety and more diversity in the diet. And some of the best ways to do that really are by, when you go to the fruit and vegetable shop, buy fruits and vegetables that are in season. One, it's a pro because they're the cheapest because they're in abundance, but also, when they're in season, that's when they're ripe. They have the highest, nutrient value. And also if you're eating different fruits and vegetables season to season, you're always mixing up, your diet and you're getting different nutrients in. So you're covering all your bases, and it's really just how you're going to feel really good and healthy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Such good stuff there. Now, when it comes to putting in those sort of foods, have you ever had any pushback as far as not digesting these foods well, or certain fruits? You did speak a little bit about FODMAPs on your own podcast earlier. How often does that come up? What should people do if they do start to get
so that's where the gut health versus the microbiome comes in. When we think about FODMAPs and potentially allergies versus intolerances, that more comes under the gut health. And sure, some people do have intolerances to things like gluten and fructose, or the FODMAPs, which are basically a group of carbohydrates that some people don't tolerate as well. And it's not uncommon. It's not that common either. So if you do get any of those symptoms, I would basically head over to a nutritionist or a dietitian and basically get yourself checked out professionally, because the worst thing that can happen is you think you have a fructose intolerance when you don't, and then you have to stop eating a lot of fruit, which is a great source of nutrients.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Now, obviously people are going to be training, I could imagine, lower intensities. For some people, absolutely not. For you guys who were able to source out a lot of equipment, get it off your locals and go through Gumtree and create almost like just as good as a home gym, or just as good as a gym that you could find outside. Most people maybe didn't get to that point, so maybe their training intensity is going to drop, their volume's going to drop. What should happen with their carbohydrate intake?
So I would say, again, it depends on how you train and what your other activity is as well. So if you're in my circumstance where my training is pretty much the same, so I'm probably burning a similar amount of energy, but the other like TDEE, so like total daily energy expenditure, is going to be much lower purely because I'm not doing as much daily steps. So in that case, you would have to lower your energy. But for some people who, let's say, are doing a banded workout, the banded workouts are often actually going to be more intense than what you usually do in the gym, because you're going to need to do a lot more reps to make it difficult or to hit closer to failure. And you might even burn more energy than you would in the gym. So you might need to raise carbohydrates.
Yeah, exactly. Because with these home workouts, because the weight is compromised, right? And we need to do more sets and more reps to kind of make up for that total volume load. It is much more cardiovascular because you're just doing so much more total work. Oh yeah,
and much more glycolytic as well.
I guess really it just comes down to fuel for the work required, so that pretty much just means match your nutrition to your energy demands and base that on your goals too. So right now, it's probably not the best time to be in a severe caloric deficit. So like going through the tail end of a comp prep right now, just because most people are compromised by not being able to, do a lot of very heavy resistance training. But if you are in a modest caloric deficit, then that's probably just fine. And, obviously just lowering your carbohydrates there, making sure that fats and proteins are at an optimal amount too. But if you're at energy maintenance, basically just matching your energy intake to your energy expenditure. And if you want to, during this time, be in a surplus, then, just eating a bit more carbohydrates, being in an energy surplus somewhere between 200 to 400 calories above your maintenance in order to gain some weight. But the best way to really just track that data is to start tracking it and just, identify those numbers. So start tracking your daily body weight and start specifically tracking your nutrition and see how many calories you're eating. And for example, if like your daily body weight is the exact same across 7 days and you're eating generally the same across those 7 days, then you can say, well, those are my maintenance calories. And then depending on your goals, decide where you want to go from there.
Yeah. Do you think everyone should track at least once in their life?
Again, a tough question, but I would say for like 90, I don't know, like let's say 99% of the population, it's probably not necessary. Again, because I think intuitive eating is what's important, but I would say it still can be helpful because you do get an understanding of, okay, because some people really don't get the point that, okay, some things are more energy dense than others. So let's say ice cream versus oats. Like ice cream per volume is going to probably be more energy dense than oats. And sort of understanding that can be very helpful. Again, it depends what sort of learner you are and the nutritional density of certain foods as well. So let's say a whole grain or fruit or vegetable is going to have more fiber than something that's more processed.
Yeah, and I just think that it's really beneficial for people to understand actual portion sizes. So understanding what is a tablespoon of peanut butter, what is a serving of meat, or what is a glass of milk, or what is a serving of pasta, these sort of things, right? Because it's certainly, in Jack and I's case as dietitians, we do a lot of very detailed dietary recalls with clients, right? And sometimes when you're doing a dietary recall with someone and they might say, oh, I have 2 pieces of bread in the morning with peanut butter. And you'll ask them like, oh, hey, how much peanut butter? Do you think like a teaspoon, a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons? And they're like, probably like a tablespoon. But if you actually looked at their peanut butter, it's probably like 4 tablespoons. So I think it really helps people understand portion sizes, energy density, nutrient density. And I think in a way it can actually really help people distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong foods, and really understand, just calories as a whole. Because, you could eat something that is, quite like nutrient dense, right? Like you could have a bunch of avocado, right? But like that does have quite a bit of calories on it. Or you might have what else would you put on a sandwich? Like some hummus or something, right? Would probably be a little bit less, but you understand what I'm trying to say there.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be very important during this time because I can see as a practical thing, I can see a lot of people snacking more often instead of actually creating meals and meal prepping, or, you know, just having separate, like you were talking about before, the dinner plate and the 3 separate meals. I think that's going to slowly fall out the window the longer people stay at home. And it's going to be very easy just to pick up snacks and other little things. And that's where some things can get out of control. And just understanding how much is in certain foods and how much you're actually eating could be a bit of an eye opener, and something that could, I guess, help you maintain that weight if you're happy where you are, or,
Yeah, certainly,
you know,
that's
push you in the
where
right
tracking
direction.
your calories or tracking in general would be helpful, because you can say, okay, I have a specific goal that I need to hit. If I'm snacking all day, I'm going to go over this goal. So it sort of confines you to what is going to be beneficial versus not aligned with your goals.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you guys aren't inherently pushing tracking, because tracking can be very, it can be a little bit emotional, it can be very hard, and it can be very demotivating when you start to look at those numbers. But for some people, it is going to be a bit of a necessity to, especially if their weight is going out of control. I think it's going to be one of the first things that people have to do if they start to see their weight increase when they don't want it to. If they don't have that, that ability to create, to sort of look at it and say, well, look, my weight is increasing and you're not sure why, you have to go back and really look at your choices.
At the end of the day, if you're gaining weight, then the majority of the time you're going to be in an energy surplus. So
Yeah, or all of the time.
yeah, all the time. Unless it's if you're not gaining fat, that is, like, it could be, I don't know, water, inflammation, etc.
Yeah, all those other things. Now, I do want to do a bit of a deep dive on protein today as well, where we talk a little bit more about the importance of it. Now, do we still need as much if we're not going to be exercising, for people that aren't at the moment? But before we get there, I do want to touch on fat just a little bit, and how it sort of assists with vitamin absorption, and if we need more or less of it at this point in time.
Yeah, so
what should
fatty
people be doing
acids
with
are
their fat?
incredibly important in the diet because they do help with the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, so vitamin A, D, E, and K. So, for example, if you're having a big salad full of carotenoids, right? So you've got like some carrots, some tomatoes, some capsicum in there, all of those like bright colored orange and yellow and red vegetables, right? Those have carotenoids in them, and those are fat soluble. And the recommendations are to try to consume around 10 grams of fat in a meal that is very high in fat soluble vitamins. But the good thing is that some foods already come with those fat soluble vitamins and fats. So for example, avocados are a great source of vitamin E, but avocados are also a great source of fat too. So they assist with the absorption of one another. So yeah, I would say if you're eating a meal, that is very high in fat soluble vitamins, try to aim for at least 10 grams of fat in that meal, wherever that comes from, whether it's some olive oil or some nuts or some avocado, or you can even get it from other foods, things like oats and peanut butter, right? But yeah, it's around that 10 gram mark. And then what was the other part of the question?
Well, no, that pretty much answered everything there. So, I just wanted, that's such practical information there, that we do need that fat to absorb some of these nutrients. What would happen to nutrients? So let's say you are getting these sources of vitamin A, E, D, and K, and you don't get that 10 grams
basically
of fat. What would
inhibit
be
the absorption of that vitamin. So you wouldn't be,
we just basically go straight to the toilet and it would just come straight out.
Yeah. Especially because, bile release from our gallbladder, that helps with the emulsifying of fatty acids, but also helps with a little bit of the absorption of fat soluble vitamins too. So you certainly will absorb still some of them, but you might just not be able to optimize that absorption as well as you would have if you don't have any fat in a meal. That's why, you don't have to have fat in every single meal. Like if you're having some rice cakes or something, like you don't have to have fat with that because there's not many fat soluble vitamins in rice cakes. But like if you are having, a big salad or, a big tub of vegetables or something like that, like I would recommend going to an effort to just make sure you are having a fat source. It doesn't have to be significant. It doesn't have to be 20 or 30 grams, just a little bit just to help with that absorption.
Now, does this apply to supplementing as well? So if someone was supplementing with vitamin D, would they still
So
need to
the great
take
thing
a
about
fat
vitamin
source
D
with
is that we actually get around 90% of vitamin D from the sunlight. So vitamin D is one of those special ones that we actually produce. We actually produce in our skin. And if you aren't supplementing with vitamin D, you actually only get around 10% from the diet. But again, vitamin D comes from fatty foods like full fat dairy and things like oily fish. So you'll get fats with that food source and that vitamin D source. But supplementing with vitamin D, I actually haven't looked into that. What do you think?
I think it could depend, just like folic acid, in terms of some of the synthetically produced vitamins, they are absorbed much easier than the naturally occurring forms. And like, I do know for certain that folic acid is one of them, which is the supplemental form of folate.
Yeah, so that's what's that, vitamin B9 or something. But yeah, you actually want to consume folic acid on an empty stomach. But we'd have to look at vitamin D for sure. But maybe to cover your bases, maybe consume it with a meal, maybe not. I know that vitamin D and calcium, they both help the absorption of one another. But yeah, we'll have to look into that one and get back to you.
Super interesting. And yeah, once again, guys, for all of this stuff and much more of a deep dive, head over to their podcast. They do this stuff pretty much every single week on these sort of questions. So I really recommend that. Now, protein, obviously one of the most important macronutrients. We can't live without it. Has the needs of the protein changed during this time?
Personally, I don't think so. And I think the amount of protein that you actually require, or that's recommended by like the Australian dietary guidelines, is very low. So it's only about 1 gram per kilo of body weight.
Yeah, or even less. It's like 0.8 or something, like significantly low. I'm like, I eat more for that than in breakfast.
But essentially, I don't think any needs have changed. Like, I think that anyone who is serious about their goals, I think it's unlikely they've stopped exercising. And you could argue anyway that in order to preserve what muscle mass or lean body mass they have, their protein requirements should stay the same.
But, protein recommendations, if someone's at energy balance, their maintenance calories, anywhere between 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram per day, spread across, around 4 meals, that's pretty adequate. And most people are actually exceeding that anyway. So let's say that you had a 60 kilogram girl, right? Consuming 4 meals a day at 2 grams per kilogram of protein, that's only 120 grams of protein. And sometimes, yeah, people can easily, especially if they're not tracking, can actually eat quite a bit more than that. Like things like meat, like a chicken breast, a large chicken breast probably has like close to 80 grams plus of protein. So even if someone had 1 chicken breast, they're quite a ways there to hitting their daily targets. So yeah, I'd say, but just generally, keep protein just around that 2 gram per kilogram mark. If you are, in a severe caloric deficit, which I hope you're not during this time, but if you are, like Eric Helms released, his systematic review talking about how you should be consuming between 2.3 to 3.1 grams per kilogram of protein per kilogram of lean mass. And but like the issue I have with that recommendation is that not everyone knows what their lean body mass is. Not everyone is out there getting DEXA scans like every 3 months or something. So I would just go off like total body weight and just stick between 2 to 0.5 grams per kilogram per day, and you're sweet. You'll be just fine.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the people that maybe aren't getting that right now. So let's say it's under 80 grams of protein per day for quite a large individual, or someone that is even trying to lose weight, whatever the point is. How detrimental is that to a physique? What happens on the inside of the body if we're not getting enough protein?
Like, let's say that we had a 100 kilogram individual only consuming around 80 grams of protein per day. That would be an issue because obviously they're not providing themselves with enough amino acids to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So they're not only not going to be able to build new muscle tissue and recover, but yeah, they're just pretty much just not getting enough protein. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
And
they'll
then
be in a
if this
constant state
person
of
is
degradation
gaining
almost.
weight, I think one of the issues is as well is that, they're getting their calories from somewhere, and they would clearly be consuming a significant amount of their calories from fatty acids and carbohydrates, which that could have quite large downstream effects, of raised blood glucose levels, raised triglyceride levels, leading to insulin resistance. So all of these issues. And also because their diet is so low in protein, they're probably just quite hungry all the time, because protein is one of the most satiating macronutrients, right? So they're probably just like ravenous all the time despite eating a lot of food.
Yeah, so much. Perfect. Absolutely perfect there. I think when it comes to protein, it's very easy to, I'm finding right now, from the people that I'm talking to, and even a little bit with myself, just meal prep in general is getting a little bit demotivating. It's very hard to start it when you're trying to when you're trying to meal prep. So yeah, making sure that you are hitting those minimum amounts of, anywhere between that 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, I think is so important for individuals. And even if you only know that number,
Even
it
if
can
we
take
come
a
back to
long
that
way
question
as
of
far as your
tracking,
diet
if you
goes.
didn't necessarily want to track everything, you could just try tracking, even just your protein intake, just to make sure that you're eating sufficient protein, if that was like a first step for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as protein goes, can you talk a little bit about the difference between getting it from whey protein versus white meat versus red meat? Which one would you say you take more of?
So when we look at protein, the difference between let's start off with an animal product versus a plant product is going to be the essential amino acids. So we know that animal products contain all the essential amino acids and a sufficient amount of leucine as well, which is important for stimulating muscle protein synthesis. However, when we compare things like eggs versus white meat, red meat, whey protein, it's difficult to compare them because they're very, very similar in that they do what we need them to do for muscle protein synthesis. They stimulate that, and sure, there might be different amounts of each amino acid, but not enough to actually really make a difference when it comes to us nutritionally.
But I would say, again, it's all about getting variety in your diet. So we've talked about getting a variety in your diet from, plenty of plant-based sources, but protein sources too. So one is not necessarily superior over the other. So chicken isn't better than beef, and beef isn't better than whey protein, right? These foods are all wonderful because they all provide a different source of nutrients. So I'd recommend, if you're eating different meals across the day, try to get your protein a little bit, from eggs, some from chicken, some from oily fish, some from whey protein, and get more variety in there. But obviously, the number one thing is the quality source of that protein, making sure it's an HBV source of protein. And other than that, just get different sources for different nutrients.
Yeah, and that's just to expand on that. That's not necessarily to do with the protein. Like, we're not having red meat and white meat and eggs and whey protein because of the protein. It's more due to the nutritional properties. So, for example, it's important to have red meat occasionally, whether that be from beef or kangaroo, because it contains iron, and eggs because it contains choline, and like whey protein because it contains calcium.
Yeah, and something like oily fish because you're going to be getting lots of omega-3s. So yeah, that's the benefit of getting more variety from different protein sources.
So good. So basically, when it comes to the actual protein amount, where you're getting it from is a little less important. Granted, it has that 2 to 3 grams of leucine to elicit muscle protein synthesis, but where you get it from is a little less important. What is the most important thing that is you're getting it from everywhere, and you're taking in a little bit from eggs, white meat, red meat. You shouldn't really be, I guess,
that's
dissecting or taking
correct.
away
And
any of those
the
things from
only
your diet,
circumstance
right?
that we would be, I guess, we would be worried about is if you were just getting it from plant sources, and then we would need to ensure that you're pairing foods correctly or supplementing with like essential amino acids in order to stimulate muscle protein synthesis.
guys, so much knowledge. This has been absolutely unreal. Tell us a little bit more about where we can find you if people wanted to work with
so
you.
if you guys want to check out
where
our
can we sort of
podcast,
find
you
out
can
more
just
about you guys?
search the Bodybuilding Dietitians pretty much on any major podcast app. We're also on Instagram under the handle the Bodybuilding Dietitians. If you want to check out our website, it's just www.thebodybuildingdietitians.com, where you can check out all of our coaching services and read a little bit of information about us. Also, our Instagram handles. So I'm under Tyarra Nelson, Jack's under Jack.Radford-Smith. Anywhere else?
I think that's about it. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us on, though.
Yeah. No, my absolute pleasure, guys. How do you guys How do you guys plan to deliver value to your clients throughout this time? Are you guys doing one-on-one video calls?
So we
Are you
pretty
guys
much
doing online programming?
We have a bunch of services, but our main one is definitely a mixture of like training, nutrition, and video consultations as well.
Yeah, so we before this whole COVID-19 thing hit, Jack and I were already kind of doing the same job, right? So we work as online coaches. So we have a whole range of different clients, and we do video calls with them every single week. And we give them tailored and updated nutrition and training programs every single week. I guess the only thing that's really changed is obviously everyone's training program has changed. We've had to write tailored home workout programs for all of our clients based on the equipment that they have available. Also, unfortunately, the clients that we would see in person to take skin folds, to do posing practice, unfortunately, during this time, we just can't have those connections, which is too bad. But hopefully after this is all over, we can see our clients in the flesh again, which should be really nice. But yeah, things are still going pretty well right now, and I've just been incredibly impressed. The majority of my girls have built themselves a home gym, which is just freaking epic.
Yeah, it really shows the people that do love it and would do anything to be a part of the sport and be a part of the lifestyle. And yeah, really got to commend you guys for everything you're doing. I have one last question to get a little bit of value for the listeners. If you could give us one piece of advice to look and feel their best, what would you tell them? And I would like one from
try and obtain a basic understanding of nutrition and what it is, and training as well. So I think sort of embracing the actual concepts of nutrition rather than thinking, oh, I can't eat bread, I can't eat these sorts of foods because they're bad for me. But once you sort of understand, okay, there are basic nutritional principles, I need to hit these bases like fiber, fruits, vegetables, but understanding that there's not really any bad and good foods, I think that really helps a lot of people. And then the same with exercise as well.
Oh, mine's going to be pretty simple.
Yeah, beautiful.
I would just recommend that
Tyarra?
everyone, as often as they can, gets outside and goes for a walk in the sun. I think that's going to make you feel really, really good. I'm not sure about making you look good, but who knows? Maybe you might get a tan or a glow in your skin. You'll definitely smile more. But I just recommend that everyone gets outside in the fresh air, in the sunlight, and go for a walk every once in a while. It truly does wonders.
Yeah, which is exactly what I'm doing during this podcast. I've been doing a walk this entire time, and I have to say, even though the weather's a little bit it always makes you feel a little bit better. So yes, I encourage both of those things. And yeah, and the other thing, and if you really are looking for that basic nutritional knowledge, right here and on the Bodybuilding Dietitian podcast is going to be one of the best places to start. Guys, I cannot thank you enough for jumping on board here.
Not. We would absolutely love to join you again. Thank you so much for having us, Carl. This has been really fun.
No, it's been so good, and hopefully I will see you on stage, Jack, in a few years' time.
Oh, how exciting! Can't wait.
And you might see my fiance Tyarra.
No worries. All right, bye.
See ya.
Beautiful. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for letting me in on your morning walk. It has been an absolute pleasure to get some people on here that want to talk to you about health optimization and staying motivated during times like this. I really want people to stay on track with what they're doing. Don't forget how good fitness and enjoyment and exercise is to your lifestyle and to everything that you do. So please keep it as a part of your routine. Use these podcasts to let them join you and to keep you on track and keep your mind on track. If you know anyone that is doing morning walks and is trying to keep their healthy habits on check, I would love for you to share this with them. Please review it, tag me in your stories. It's all going to be super helpful to me getting some amazing guests to talk to you about everything health, fitness, nutrition, and how to get your best body. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.